Another breaking story we're following: officials announced the city of Missoula will be conducting a phased closure of the Johnson Street emergency shelter. The closure is expected to begin in April and conclude by August. Officials say the reason for the decision was made after funding constraints, the effectiveness of the shelter model, and the city's housing goal were all evaluated. The closure is reportedly driven by a lack of pandemic-era federal funding that was used to support the shelter's operations. I attended a media press conference Mayor Andrea Davis held Friday afternoon to discuss the closure.
We're focused on housing solutions for folks because at the end of the day, the solution to homelessness is housing. And that's where I want to see the city put its resources and our community put its resources to. When talking with shelter guests as early as yesterday, folks are there because they have to be, but they would much rather have a home in which it's their own four walls.
Davis says the Johnson Street shelter costs nearly $2 million a year to operate, and the city no longer has the funding to keep it open. She also talked about how the shelter was never a permanent solution, just a temporary one. Some council members expressed concern via email before the press conference as to why they were not notified about this closure. Here's what Davis had to say when asked about that.
Because this wasn't a council decision. I did have council input from our city council chairs and so city council leadership, but I have not brought this forward to city council for a decision because this is an administrative decision for the eventual closure of the Johnson Street. If city council wants to make a decision to find $2 million in the city's budget to keep Johnson Street open, then that will be a council decision and we'll go through that through the budget process.
Daniel Carlino was one of the council members who sent an email commenting on the closure, saying, quote, closing the shelter will make homelessness much more visible and cause hardships for the most vulnerable members of our community. He goes on to say Missoula City Council and County Commission should make the decision to keep funding the shelter until we have alternatives in place. Councilmember Kristen Jordan also commented saying, quote, I'm beyond disappointed that select council members were allowed to weigh in on this. She goes on to say this reeks information withholding. And this is just like the ordinance process to criminalize homelessness. To read the full statements, head to our homepage at NBCMontana.com. We'll continue to follow this story and bring you the latest updates on air and online.